Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Arise to Success show, where we aim to highlight inspiring individuals and their journeys to success. I'm your host on the show. My name is Jihad. Today, we have a great guest, and we will be discussing a very interesting topic, and I believe it is actually very important as well. I'm honored to have Arfy Majeed today, who is a financial and investment coach. Besides talking a bit about Arfy's journey today of what got her to become a financial and investment coach, Arfy will also talk about why our financial well being is as important as our physical well being, as research shows that 73% of our stress is due to our finances. This is a pre-recorded show, so we're not taking any calls today. But please feel free to text or WhatsApp your thoughts about the show on 0779 481822, or you can also comment on Facebook. Just to let you know that some of our shows will, or some of our episodes will be recorded, just in case myself or the guests are unable to make it on for the live show, whereas most of the shows will be actually live. But feel free to send us your comments. Arfi, thank you so much for being here with us today, and welcome to the Rise to Success show. How are you doing today?
Alhamdulillah, I'm really good. Thank you so much for having me. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you
to
for
be here.
Thank you, Arfi. It's a pleasure to have you as well. So, Arfi, your area of expertise is very, very interesting, and I believe is
Mhm.
very important as well, which I feel that we don't really give it that much attention. So, I'm honored to have you with us on the show today. And perhaps if we can start with, if you can tell us what is actually a financial and investment coach?
Sure. So I am a certified financial coach. Um, what we do is we support individuals
Mm,
overcome any blocks that they have when it comes to managing their finances. Usually,
mm,
those blocks come from a lack of education because we're not taught how to manage our money when we're at school.
mm,
Sometimes individuals experience financial trauma, such as loss of money, and that makes them avoid taking investment decisions. So similarly, how someone would go to the gym and hire a personal trainer to support them in their financial fitness journey, a financial coach very similarly will work one to one with an individual and support them in managing their money, their finances, getting them started on their investment journey, and ensure that the individuals are using their money correctly to build wealth and not overspend. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely. And I'm just thinking as you're talking is that we don't get we don't get that in schools either. We don't get that in education where we learn how to manage our finances. So that adds even more importance to have a financial coach to help manage the money. But a lot of people, because that idea is I feel like it's an idea that people are not so used to. They might be thinking, well, I can manage my money myself. Why would I need a coach to do that? Are there difficulties with having this kind of thinking or this mindset?
Yes, so there are some individuals who can manage their money and perhaps don't need a financial coach at all.
Mm,
But there is a huge amount of the population that unfortunately do. The
mm,
reason for that is at school we are taught about physical well-being, we're taught
mm,
about mental well-being, but we're not taught about financial well-being and your finances and how you manage your money, how you earn your money, how you spend your money, how you invest your money are so integral to our personal development after school. And
mm,
subsequently, if individuals are happy to manage their finances and they feel they know what they're doing, then that's absolutely brilliant.
mm,
But for individuals that do need that support, who don't know where to start, who don't know how to start investing, perhaps, then that's where I would recommend they go out and look for help. And perhaps
mm.
initially in the start of their wealth journey, use a financial coach and see how it goes.
That's what I was thinking as well when you were talking. I was like, even though we may think that we know how to manage our money, specifically, for individuals who are in business or doing something for themselves, it might be worth starting at least with it to get to
Mhm.
that kind of training or kind of like
Yeah.
a bit of a boost to kind of manage it in an effective way, and then
Yeah.
they can go ahead and do it themselves. Whereas those who need extra support, they can have a coach for a little bit longer. When you said as well, and I was reading your bio when it stated that 73% of our stress is due to finances, I was like, wow, 73, that's a very high percentage. That's over, well over 50%. So can you tell us more about that? Because as you mentioned earlier as well, we talk about physical and emotional well-being. We never heard about financial well-being and how important that is. So if you could tell us, how is that? How is research that showing that 73% of our stress is due to finances?
So annually, there isn't that much data, unfortunately. However, annually there are reports coming out of the US,
Mm,
um, which specifically focus on mental health, and it's those reports that show that a big trigger for your mental health is your finances. That year on year has been between 60 to 70%, showing that stress is due to finances, how money is managed, due to money being
mm,
lost, a fear of not having enough money. In the UK recently, I think the stats are, if I just quickly bring it up,
sure.
it's in the UK it's pretty horrendous. In fact, so problems due to money are leading to suicide. Um, the cost of living crisis has had a huge impact on people's mental health in the UK. Um, and so subsequently, we don't even know what the numbers are actually for the Muslim population, but we know that they are skewed not in the favor for women.
Mm,
And so the stats are very alarming.
yeah.
And subsequently, I think I think times have shifted now. Now there is a focus on financial well-being. We're seeing a lot of financial influencers on social media. Banks are also taking note and launching their own programs, teaching people how to manage their money. There are helplines now out there to support people who are going through financial difficulties. So the tide is shifting. However, it's not shifting enough because we are an aging population, and we're living for longer. And what the stats are also showing are that we are not prepared for retirement. So,
Mm,
so the normal retirement age is 65 to 67. People tend to live for another 30 years beyond that, and there isn't enough in their retirement pots to cover them for their retirement. In the US, that's where the best stats are coming from. 3 out of 4 people are not prepared for retirement, and again, that is skewed really not in favor of women. So for women, the stats are even worse.
wow. And you said that it's related to suicide as well.
Yes,
Wow, this is quite alarming. It's quite scary.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Money is very emotional. We're not taught how to
Mm,
manage it, and
mm,
it can make someone very emotional when they feel like they don't have enough of it. It can make someone feel very emotional when they feel like they don't have enough of it to spend on their families and to look after their loved ones. And
mm.
with the cost of living crisis, the stats are becoming a lot more alarming.
Yeah. Wow, I was shocked when I was listening to that one. I was like, wow, it's actually directly related to suicide. We're talking about the population in general. Now, what I noticed with Muslims in specific is that a lot of people believe that money is evil. So we shouldn't really talk about money and we shouldn't really address it. What's your input on this, Arfy? Is it a topic that us as Muslims shouldn't talk about, shouldn't discuss, or is it important to actually learn how to manage it well?
So I find it very bizarre. I grew up in the UK, and I was
Just you.
not. I'm
Hmm.
sorry.
No, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in the UK, and I was never aware of this concept. I know it's very common amongst my friends who are Christian and belong to other religions.
Hmm.
Um, Now I live in the UAE, and I don't see this at all. Um, if if we look, so in Islam, um, the first revert to Islam was our mother Khadija.
Mm,
Khadija was a notorious businesswoman,
mm,
and she was very good at creating money. And so what Khadija did was send caravans from Mecca to Yemen and Damascus, and these caravans would carry goods from Mecca. And the jobs of the traders that she employed was to sell these goods in Yemen and Damascus, and in turn, in Yemen and Damascus, their job was to buy goods, bring it to Mecca, and sell it in Mecca at a very good price. And
mm,
so this concept is buy low, sell high. In trading, we call this scalping. It's very
mm,
profitable, and the idea is to maximize on the amount of money that you can make. Um, so money, business, being an entrepreneur, creating a financial economy. This has been integrated in Islam from very earlier on.
mm.
Muslims have the fiqh of Islamic finance and the fiqh of business that teaches us how to conduct business and how, again, to manage money. We have different financial contracts, the ijara, for example, the mudaraba. Um, we also have ethical finance. I come from a finance background. Um, in the past 10 years, there's been a huge emphasis in the West to manage money ethically. And we now have concepts such as ESG, which is economic social governance.
Mm.
But if we look at the fiqh of Islamic finance, which was founded more than 1,000 years ago, it's what we're teaching now in Western democracy is very similar to what Islamic finance laid out many years ago. So this concept of money being evil is this is not from Islam, because we are actually the pioneers of how to create money, how to manage money, how to create financial contracts, and how to build a financial economy.
Mm.
Um, if we just looking across the world, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, these Muslim countries, there's no concept there of money being evil, and subsequently they're very prosperous. So you go further east, similarly in Malaysia, Malaysia takes the lead when it comes to Islamic finance, and the Muslim women there and the Muslim men are again pioneers in business. They have founded multiple businesses, and their economy is doing very well too. So this concept of money being evil is not from Islam. Islam teaches us how to, it tells us, so when we make dua, we pray for health and we pray for wealth. We have multiple du'as to protect us from poverty, because that is not good for anyone. And in addition to that, we're encouraged to go to work. We're encouraged to produce an income. We have rules on how we manage our money. So we should
Mm.
not manage our money incorrectly. We should not spend on things that are prohibited. We should also not hoard money.
Mm.
However, making money, going out to work, creating businesses, creating economies, this comes from Islam.
This is really interesting. Thank you for that because it's interesting what you said. There's actually a Western way of thinking rather than Islamic way of thinking, and I do hear it quite a lot amongst Muslims. So, when you said that you're comparing it with, Middle Eastern countries, for example, Qatar, Saudi, Dubai, and so on,
Mm-hmm.
completely different concept. So, to my thinking here, because I hear it amongst Muslims, I thought it is an idea that Muslims have. It seems like it's an influence from the Western society here. So it is not an Islamic concept. It is an influence from Western way of thinking. And from what you're saying, that the example that you've given, Khadija radiallahu anha, she had her own business. She was an entrepreneur. So in fact, it seems like that for us as Muslims, it seems like it's an obligation for us to follow the path of our mothers in Islam and the Sahabas, where they actually had the ability to manage their finances quite well. And I feel like it's not just important, but it seems like it's an obligation to know how to manage your money well. Um, I'm wondering here, are there any training on how to manage your money from the Islamic perspective, because you said there are rules on how to manage your money Islamically. Are there any sort of training, any sort of support for if the listeners here, inshallah, they benefit from this and they would want to take this further? Is there anything that you're aware of out there that is specifically that Islamic training and how to manage money?
Yes. So there's actually there's multiple places that people can go to learn how to. So it's more in relation to how they conduct business.
Mm,
So number one, the Al Balag Institute in the UK
mm,
does lots of courses on Islamic finance and the fiqh of business. If any Muslim is wishing to start a business, I strongly recommend they study the fiqh of business at the same time that they set up their business, because in the fiqh there is a lot of information out there to support you in how you manage your business.
mm,
Um, and you also talked about your rights as an employer, the rights of your employees, um, how to finance your business, um,
mm,
how to raise capital, and it's rather than just learning. There's also a lot of information in there that can support you in creating your business. And
mm,
I strongly recommend for anyone who's starting a business and is a Muslim, to definitely participate in one of those courses. Similarly, with Islamic finance now, I think there's multiple institutions running
mm,
around the world. If you were to Google it, I'm sure you could find a course near you or an online course that would teach you the concept, the basics of Islamic finance. And and also, I think it's quite important for Muslims to learn this. So even if you're not working in the Islamic finance field, just learning, for example, what an ijara is, which is the concept of a leasing contract. So if you have a piece of machinery, you could lease it to someone, and how the terms work around that. It's good basic knowledge for Muslims to have, and also for Muslims to understand their religion.
mm.
There's a huge focus, which is very important, on the seerah, the life of the Prophet. Um, but equally, Muslims should also learn how we conduct ourselves, and you can learn a lot of that from courses such as the fiqh of Islamic finance and the fiqh of business.
Wow, I myself, I'll be honest, I never knew any of these things. So now listening to
Days of
that.
Ashura with Inspire FM. Days of
Um,
Ashura with Inspire FM. To learn more about the days of
right, sorry, I think there was just some kind of voices from elsewhere there. So I was saying that, even myself, I didn't know about all of these, things, fiqh of finances, managing your finances from the
Days of
Islamic
Ashura with Inspire FM. Days of Ashura.
I'm not sure what's going on there. Let me just check. Sorry,
Okay.
sorry,
Days of Ashura with Inspire FM.
sorry. I'm just messaging them to check that everything is okay.
Okay.
Right, hopefully should be fine. Apologies about that.
Days of
No worries.
Ashura with Inspire FM. To
No
learn
worries.
more about the days.
It sounds like there's a recording that's being played back.
Yeah, I'm just messaging them to check what's going on. I do apologize, Arfy, and I do apologize, listeners. This is virtual, so I don't know if there was some sort of, recording, something that is interfering with our recording today. So I just messaged them, so hopefully it should be okay for now. Right, so I was saying this is quite interesting, mashallah, that there are some training as well out there. So this is something I definitely will check, inshallah, for me to benefit from this and to manage my finances better. And inshallah, I'm hoping the listeners can find that beneficial as well. So you've mentioned fiqh of business, you've mentioned the basics of Islamic finances. Is there anything else just to kind of mention it again so that our listeners can make notes of it, Arfi?
Sure. So if anyone is so for example, if anyone does not know where to start, um, and they are completely lost, and they feel like they're not managing their money correctly, then I would also encourage them to seek support from perhaps a Muslim certified financial coach.
Yeah.
it does not have to be me, but I would certainly recommend they book in at least 2 to 3 sessions initially, just to start with, just so that they have someone supporting them one-to-one to put them
Mm.
on the right path.
No, that's amazing. I was going to ask about this as well. But just to kind of remind the listeners of who we have today with us, we have the amazing Arfy Majeed, mashallah, who's a financial and investment coach. And today we're discussing the topic of finances and why our financial well-being is just as important as our physical well-being. As
Yeah.
research shows that 73% of our stress is due to our finances, which is quite an interesting finding. So, Arfi, now if we can move into the coaching, how does the coaching work? We talked a bit about training. How many sessions is somebody, needing to manage their finances? Is it different for somebody who's starting a business or somebody is already in the business? So, yeah, walk us through the coaching process.
Sure, sure. So the way, so every coach is different. Every coach will use
Mm,
a different approach. The way I do it, so as a coach, our job is to support individuals,
mm,
and one of the best ways that you can support someone is also understand if they require any form of healing. So,
mm,
so for me, as well as being a certified financial coach, I also do inner child healing, and I also work with essential oils. Um, the first session with me is always a deep delve into someone's mindset and beliefs around money and wealth,
mm,
to uncover exactly what is holding them back. Um,
mm,
so we all have a voice in our head, and that voice in our head has the biggest impact on our lives and the way that we conduct ourselves. In the first instance, we would need to know what that voice in your head is telling you about money, wealth, yourself, your confidence. Have you been through any trauma? What were the conversations around money like in your childhood when you were growing up?
mm,
Um, what I find with my clients is, and this has been across the board, across men and women,
mm,
and no matter what kind of background that they come from, when individuals come from a very supportive, healthy, happy home, they tend to manage their finances and their money very, very well. And
mm,
this applies to all aspects of their life. So they look after their physical wellness very, very well. They go to the gym. They look after their mental health very well as well. And so they are subsequently then going to be very, very good at also looking after their finances and managing
mm,
their money and growing their wealth. They go on to be very, very good business people as well.
mm,
But because they're so confident and secure in themselves, they
mm.
conduct business very, very well. Um,
Wow. So
Individuals,
interesting.
yeah, it's very interesting. It's very psychological.
Mm,
It is more about the psychology of money
mm,
initially,
wow.
and then once we worked on the mindset, the beliefs, built up the confidence in an individual on how they can manage their money, then we actually start focusing on the education on what a stock is, what a share is, what crypto is, what a crypto asset is, how to build a real estate portfolio, Sharia compliant investing options, and just a checklist really to make sure that you've got everything in place. So you have life insurance, your pension is working correctly for you, you've managed your wealth and your assets correctly. So in the event if something of happening to you, your loved ones would be looked after. But initially, the beginning is always mindset, beliefs, psychology.
Mm,
What I also see, again with a lot of British Muslims, is
mm,
that we come from, unfortunately, traumatic homes
mm,
where sons and daughters of immigrants, and unfortunately a lot of culture that doesn't favor women so much,
mm,
um, where I feel that Asian parents in particular, and immigrant parents are very that they love their children, but they're also very, very hard on their children because they want their children to be successful and do well.
mm,
But because they're so hard, that harshness that they have with their children, it then becomes like a debilitating voice in
mm,
them when they become adults. So that's where the inner child healing work comes in.
mm.
so sometimes with I mean, I have some clients who choose to do at least 10 sessions of inner child healing first, which is basically putting them in a meditative state where we go back to their childhood, and we try and reassure that inner child in them that they are safe, they are confident, they are loved, they are looked after. We really work on changing that voice inside their head that is sabotaging them. And
So, Arfy, if I stop you there, because we're going to go for a break shortly, but I think that's a really important
sure,
point to continue after the break. So,
of course,
listeners, yes, thank you, Arfy. We'll definitely continue that after the break. So, listeners, please stay tuned. This is Inspire FM on 105.1. We have the amazing Arfy today talking about a very important topic. So please stay tuned after the break. We will continue talking about the coaching and the, how you help clients, and you're talking about the healing from that, the traumas from childhood and so on. So we'll go for a few minutes break and we'll see you shortly. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to the Arise to Success show. We have Arfy Majeed today, who's a financial and investment coach, and we're discussing finances and why our financial well-being is very important and is just as important as our physical well-being. Listeners, this is a pre-recorded show, so we're not going to be able to take any calls today, but please feel free to text WhatsApp your thoughts about the show on 07779 481822, or you can also message us on Facebook or comment on Facebook. Arfy, very important topic, and just before the break, we're talking about the coaching process, how it helps individuals manage their finances. You're talking about healing from childhood traumas. If you continue that, because I think that's a very, very important topic.
yes, absolutely. So as I was saying, in childhood, so our beliefs around money and wealth are actually set in our mindset before the age of 7. So everything that we see around money and wealth, the conversations that happened, the way our parents managed our money, this becomes deeply embedded into our mindset. And so subsequently, for some clients who feel like that they need the inner child healing work first, we focus on that first, and that is basically giving their inner child reassurance that they are loved, they are safe, they are enough, they are intelligent, and a lot of that work is subsequently then changing the voice that individual has in their head on how they view themselves and how confident they then feel in managing their finances and their money going forward. The inner child healing work doesn't just help with how they manage their money and their finances, but it also really supports them in becoming a more confident individual who basically follows their higher self. So within us we have our higher self, which is us. It's who we are at our core. Our higher self wants the best for us and the best for everybody else, but we also have a lower self, which is Islamically we call that your nafs. It's part of you that will self-sabotage. It's a part of you that will try and put you on the wrong path, even though you know what the right path is. And what the healing work does is it gives your higher self more control, and it minimizes your lower self. When you're in that state, then you are ready to succeed in all areas of your life, not just your finances, but also in your fitness journey, in your mental health, your relationships with other people too. So the healing work it's very important for individuals who may have suffered trauma or a very, very tough childhood. Once we've overcome that, then the next stage is let's get you started on your finances now. Now you're ready to understand what a spending plan is, how to manage your wealth, how to build your wealth, and the investing.
Wow. So you mentioned that there are a certain number of sessions for the healing, and then a certain number of sessions for the managing the finances. Is there a specific number of sessions, or does it depend on each individual?
It completely depends on the individuals. Some people don't need inner child healing at all because they come from very, very happy and supportive homes, and they have a very, very supportive network. And with individuals like that, you can go straight into money management. with individual. So the benefit of the one-to-one coaching subsequently is that it's bespoke and it's tailored around an individual's need. We're all different. So some people just can just have one healing session, and that's enough to get them started. But some, unfortunately, it's usually women who have to do it for at least 3 months before they're in a stage to move on. And the reason for that is because if they don't do that healing work first, they'll self-sabotage. They'll find a reason not to continue with their spending plans or not to focus on their investing. And so that's why the healing work is so important. If I take myself as an example, when I first moved to the UAE, I went from being a VP of finance in a company, and I was promoted to the commercial director. And this was directed to the board. And when I moved to the UAE, my job was to build the entire business out there. So it was to set up the company, set up the trades, set up the bank accounts, set up the entire business effectively. And I was very much thrown in at the deep end. And I myself needed a coach to support me during that journey. And my workplace offered me coaches, but they had a lot of masculine alpha energy, and I was looking for somebody who I could relate to a little bit more. And so one of my best friends in Dubai, she's also a CEO, recommended her coach. And after the first session, her coach, all she would focus on is inner child healing with me. And to be, even I got a bit annoyed, and I would go back to my friends and say, are you sure she's a good coach? And my friend told me to stick with it. And so we did inner child healing for at least the first 10 sessions. And at each session, I was like, really, we're going to go back and do this? But she was right. So I myself come from an immigrant household. My parents came from Pakistan. And they were very, very tough with me. And they loved me, but they were very, very tough with me because they wanted me to be successful. But that toughness also created an inner child in me that was very, very scared. And so for my coach, it was very important for her to first start off with the inner child and do the inner child healing sessions with me before we could move on and do anything else. Because if that inner child inside you is not healed, it will find a way to self-sabotage you. If it's not getting, because it never got enough attention, not enough love, it doesn't feel confident, it will create a voice in your head telling you that you are not confident and you are not capable of doing this. So that healing work needs to be done first. It's very, very important. And I myself am like a prodigy of the results of that, because after that I flourished. And that's another reason why when I started my coaching practice, I wanted to bring that into one of my offerings. And I see it too. I see when individuals do that work, that healing work, they absolutely flourish afterwards, not just in their finances, but in all areas of their life.
Wow, that's amazing. So finances is not just finances, there's a lot of psychology behind it.
Absolutely, so much psychology. And money is it's very, very emotional, very emotional, and it's really important for individuals not to put their personal performance on money. And this is from Islam as well. So your rizq comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, you have to strive for it. Yes, you have to work for it. And but ultimately it comes from Allah. And we should ask, when we make dua, we should also ask for it. That's very important too. But who we are as a person, our confidence, our abilities, how secure we feel about ourselves must be kept separate to our wealth as well. And again, that comes into psychology. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that their success is only down to the amount of money that they make. And that is not correct. And that is not from Islam as well.
it's interesting when you break it down like this. It makes us realize how much is behind finances, and it's not just about the money. It's a lot of psychology behind it. You know, the upbringing that we've had, as you've mentioned, is having a lot of impact, and that's why it's making a lot of sense why 73% of our stress is due to finances, because it's not just finances, but a lot of emotions are behind it as well. A lot of psychology is behind it, and
Mhm.
it's just an area we don't even talk about when it comes to emotional well-being. So that's really interesting. Thank you, Arfy. Just to remind the listeners, we have Arfy Majeed with us today, who's a financial and investment coach, and we're discussing the topic of finances and why our financial well-being is very important and is as important as our physical well-being. This is a pre-recorded show, listeners, so we're not taking any calls, but please feel free to text or WhatsApp your thoughts on the show on 0779 481822. Arfi, talking about coaching, is do you think that we need to have coaching and the training that you've mentioned earlier, or is coaching enough? I mean, listening to yourself training in itself isn't enough. If somebody wants to take a step, further by listening here, what's the first step that they need to take? Is it training, or do they go straight to a coach? Is it enough to have a coach, or do they need that training on the side as well?
Again, everyone is different, so it would completely come down to the individual. Everyone knows themselves,
Mm,
and so they will have a better idea of whether or not they could benefit immediately in the first instance from one-to-one coaching with a coach.
mm,
Some people, it also depends on your cash flow and your finances as well. So, unfortunately, coaches are not particularly cheap, and if somebody is already hand to mouth, it would be an
mm,
expense that perhaps they could not afford in the first instance.
mm,
Um, so, so my initial advice is first just have the awareness of how important your financial wellness is. So it's not something that you put under the carpet. Just in the same way that you look after your physical wellness and your mental health, you should
mm,
also focus on looking after your finances and how you manage your money.
mm,
Um, if someone is hand to mouth, their focus must be on upping their income so that they
mm,
are no longer in a position where they're hand to mouth. So,
mm,
so perhaps learn a new skill set, perhaps do a side hustle, but living in a hand to mouth situation is it's very risky. It puts an individual at risk.
mm,
So first instance is really try and get yourself out of a situation where you're hand to mouth. You must be in a situation where you're making more money than you earn, and when you're in that position, then you now can afford to get extra support with managing your finances. If you're an individual who feels like they would benefit from healing, then go out there and get the healing that you need to do, and
mm,
allocate some of your expenditure to education.
mm,
So once you've done the healing, and once again, if you do not want to work with a one-to-one coach, study the fiqh of business, study the fiqh of Islamic finances, because there's a lot of information in there on how to conduct yourself.
mm.
And of course, also if you think in the first instance that you would benefit from one-to-one coaching and you have the funds to do so, then I would definitely encourage it.
Okay. Roughly, so the listeners are aware, how much is the cost to have a coach? Is there a range?
Um, so it's very interesting. So I actually don't know any other financial coaches.
Mm,
So I certified with a body in the UK,
mm,
and I never really kept in contact. So I'm not too sure what their fees are. So I offer packages.
mm,
To work with me, it would be at least 3 to 4 sessions, and
mm,
then I would need to have a one-to-one conversation with the individual. But generally, it's about in US dollars, about $200 per session.
mhm,
You can have one session a month, maybe 2 sessions a month, 3 sessions a month. So it's not the cheapest option,
mm,
but to get you on the right track, even
mm,
if you did it for a few months, that one support that you get
mm,
is very, very valuable. It's similarly to if you wanted to, if you were new to the gym, and
Yeah.
you didn't know how the equipment worked, you didn't know how to get yourself into a good routine,
Mm.
you would hire a personal trainer,
Yeah.
a good personal trainer who knows how to look after you, who can deliver that one-to-one support.
Mm.
Um, Again, is probably not the cheapest option out there, but then
Mm.
they're certainly worth it, because once they put you on that path and you're on that journey, then their
Mm.
job is to support you so much and give you a good head start that you excel going forward.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the rate that you mentioned is about 170, £180. But as you've mentioned, it's not something for life, right? It's just something that is needed, at the start of your business, or if you're looking into better managing your money. So it's an investment that can go on for a few sessions that can be very helpful. Because I'm just thinking here at the back of my
Exactly.
mind. Yeah, I'm just thinking here at the back of my mind. I never had that training. I never had, that, in the upbringing. We don't think about finances in that sense that you just explained it just now.
Hmm.
Even for myself, I'm thinking this will be something really, really beneficial. So thank you for that. Coming back to talking about, because, just in case listeners have joined a bit late, so it's coming back talking about, the concept of money is evil. And we talked about your input in that and the fact that it is not actually Islamic. And we have, great figures Islamic like Khadija radiallahu anha, one of the amazing, Sahabis and the Prophet's wives. She had, her own business. She was an entrepreneur. She managed her business and so on. I'm just thinking here as well, giving charity. We give charity, one of the forms of giving charity is in the form of finances, right?
Hmm.
So, what is the best mentality or mindset to have towards money as Muslims? And also, we kind of talked a bit briefly about that, but if you elaborate on it a bit more, and also if you have any other, examples of Islamic figures like Khadija radiallahu anha mentioned, are there any other Muslim figures, males and females, that manage their money quite well and were successful entrepreneurs or successful in business?
Oh, Jihad, there's so many. So the reason we have the adhan
Mm.
is because of Bilal. And
Mm.
the reason we have Bilal is because Abu Bakr freed him and he paid money for that.
Right.
Um,
Mm.
the the progression of the Muslim empire was due to the fact that the Muslims were wealthy and they had the finances to build the empire.
Yeah.
So if we look at one of the key moments in Islamic history is for example, the takeover of Constantinople.
Mm.
It was the Sultan Ahmed who did that, and he was very wealthy. He was very well financed, and one of the major reasons Constantinople fell
Mm.
is because the king of Constantinople at the time was very poor. If
Mm.
we There's a very really good documentary on Netflix actually, which goes into the Ottomans, and it shows that so I think it was, I can't remember the name of the king, but the king of Constantinople at the time was so poor that they didn't have any gold or silver coins. All the
Mm.
coins were made from copper and brass. And then you had Ahmed with his like very strong financing, and and that financing bought the power of Hungarians. It enabled him to invest in technology to create the state of art cannons, which were instrumental in the takeover of Constantinople. Um, I think our history is littered with examples of where money and wealth were instrumental in growing Islam. If we take like maybe a more gentler example, the building of the first university in Morocco. Um,
Mm.
this was founded by a Muslim woman, a Muslim scholar. Again, she came from a very wealthy family, but she self financed the first university.
Mm.
So money is nothing but a tool. It can be
Yeah.
used for good and it can be used for bad. But
Mm.
when it is used for good, the good that it can create is is monumental.
Mm.
The building of universities, the building of schools, in Grenada, the hospitals. Um, Grenada is one of the first places where music therapy was introduced for patients who suffered from poor mental health.
Mm.
All of this takes money, it takes financing, the fact that Muslims have such beautiful architecture and beautiful gardens. Again, this comes from skill, knowledge, and financing.
Yeah.
So financing is key in growth, development, building an economy. It's key in how we conduct ourselves. When you have wealth, you have the opportunity to be generous and responsible, and you have the opportunity given to you to uphold principles of justice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Islam encourages Muslims to earn wealth, but through lawful means, and it also tells us that we must spend our wealth in lawful means. And so when you do that, then you create a beautiful economy where people are happy. They have good healthcare, they have good schools, people are happy in their jobs. So it, of course, if it's used incorrectly, then it causes misery and misfortune. But it's all down to the use of it, and so the use of it and having it are key.
Yeah. And from what you're saying is that it actually, you know, finances actually is a way to raise and for the ummah to rise as well. And lack of it makes it, puts us in a situation where we're not doing so well as the example that you've given.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about the athkar, that we read morning and evening. And one of it is that we seek refuge from being poor.
Yes.
So yes, so it's that in fact Islamically, Islam encourages us to be wealthy, but as you said, to use it in the lawful way.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
This has. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
And it's important as well. So because when you have a fiqh of Islamic, so whenever you have a fiqh of anything, it gives it an important place in Islam. And so Islam places an importance on money and the ethical use of money. And I think it encourages Muslims to strike a balance between material wealth and spiritual well-being as well. But really, the ultimate aim of money is to spend it lawfully and in a way that brings you closer to Allah,
Yeah.
and in a way that benefits your families and society as a whole.
Yeah.
And so and absolutely, no, it's like having a knife. A knife can be used to carve and make beautiful food, meals, art, but a knife can also be used to do something terrible.
Yeah.
It's all down to how you use it. But the knife itself is not evil, right? It's just a tool.
Yes, absolutely. I love that example that you've given because it really, it gives a really good practical example of, when it comes to money, when we talked about, thinking of money as evil, where you're given an example of a knife, it's just a tool. And so is finances, it's just a tool. We can use it the right way or the wrong way. It's up to us how to use it. And Islamically, of course, it encourages us to use it the lawful way and encourages us to be wealthy as Muslims as well. Just a reminder to our listeners, we have Arfy on the show today, who's a financial and investment coach. This is a pre-recorded show, so we can't take any calls, but please feel free to text WhatsApp your thoughts on 0779 481822. Alternatively, you can also message us on Facebook. Arfy, in the last few minutes, what can listeners do today so that they can start looking after their financial well-being?
So a really good question. So how about I give listeners a task that I give to my clients, and that is to so I encourage everybody to have a diary and to journal. Journaling is very, very extremely good for mental health. All the research shows that. I would invite listeners to journal how they spend their money and how that makes them feel. And if it makes them feel negative, I would encourage them to write down something to challenge that negativity. So for example, let's say Layla goes shopping, she spends so much, and then she's too scared to look at her credit card bill afterwards, or her bank statements. how did Layla, how did you feel when you spent that money? And yes, now you have a fear of looking at your bank statements, but how could we turn that over on its head? So, for example, if you now looked at your bank statements, um, how could looking at your bank statements be a positive thing? Yeah.
Interesting.
So journaling.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Lastly, also before we finish, where can listeners learn more? Are there any training that you offer apart from the coaching that you do? How can they, get to know more about, if they want to know more about coaching, for example, more about financial investment and how they can manage their money better? Is there any platform where they can learn more?
So alhamdulillah, there's so many out there. If they were to Google it, I think they'd come up with, there's just so many, and they're really, really good. My one is called the Wealth Oasis Club. You can also find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, which is the Wealth Oasis Club. And inshallah, I will be bringing, as well as the one-to-one coaching, I'm hoping to bring out a seminars in September, which a lot more economic, and and a lot more detailed about different concepts of Islamic finance and just managing your money in general, inshallah.
Great, and that you will let others know about that on the website, on your platform, Instagram as well.
Correct, absolutely.
Perfect. Jazakallah khair, Arfi. It has been an honor to have you with us today. So thank you so much. Unfortunately, it has reached the end of the show. But what you've shared today has been really, really beneficial. It's an area I didn't know much about, and I'm assuming a lot of our listeners did not know much about either. So thank you so much, Arfi. Listeners, also thank you very much for being here with us today. I hope you have enjoyed today's session as much as I have, and you found it beneficial as well. Please do stay tuned for our future episodes. And also, if you know or you are someone who would like to share your story in our radio show to inspire others, please do get in touch with us on 07779 481822. Would love to hear from you. Arfi, thank you so much again for being here with us. Jazakallah khair has been very, very beneficial. Listeners, as always, arise to success and see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.